I'm going to teach you guys how to really leverage the gifts that we all have for success. And I'm also going to talk to you a little bit about some successful celebrities who have leveraged these types of gifts and have talked about it open and honestly. Okay, so what is extrasensory perception? Some of you may know what it is. Some of you may not know what it is. Extrasensory perception is the sixth sense. It's also considered second sight. It is the ability to gather, receive, or collect information from outside of those physical five senses that we all know about. So whenever we're gathering information or receiving intelligence from a source beyond touch, taste, smell, sense, and hearing, we are actually tapping into our extrasensory perception gifts. Now, the number one gift that we have been talking about, I would say, for the last 3 to 4 years, we're seeing a lot more people discuss intuition as well as empathy. These two gifts are also considered extrasensory gifts. Empathy would fall under what is called Clair empathy. Each individual, every one of us, has what is called clairs, or psychic abilities, or psychic sense. We all have psychic sense. We all have psychic abilities. Some of us have stronger psychic sense in certain areas, and others have stronger psychic sense in other areas. Some of us may have 1 or 2 psychic senses, and some of us may have most of these psychic senses. Now, one of the things that I have learned over the 8 years of really nurturing my gift and really walking in my spiritual truth is the more that you use the muscle of intuition, the more that you use the muscle of empathy, the stronger the other clairs that you have may become, as well as you may see yourself establish other sensitivities that you may not have been aware of. So for myself, I have always been aware of my ability to be Clair empathic and be able to pick up other people's energy, as well as clairsentient, which is that gut feeling. Each and every individual is clairsentient. We all get gut feelings. We all have intuition. We all have that sixth sense sometimes that something isn't quite right or something's going to go really good. So clairsentient and Clair empathy were two gifts that I really knew from the beginning I had. Through the work that I've done over the last couple of years and my own spiritual path and journey, I've actually picked up or began to notice other Clair psychic senses that I wasn't quite aware that I had. So I'm going to run through some of these psychic senses that exist underneath the umbrella of extrasensory perception. And as I describe these different types of skills or strengths, I want you to ask yourself if you may have these skills or strengths, and so take a note and write these things down, because you may in the future want to develop that gift so that you can tap into using what I consider is a superpower in the world as you're trying to establish success and reach your goals. Again, I want to thank everybody for joining. So, like I said, extrasensory perception is the ability to gather information outside and beyond the five senses. Examples of extrasensory perception, and there's probably many others, but these are the ones that I felt were, 1, most important, 2, most likely that there would be individuals seeing this who also have these skills, and 3, these are skills that there's a lot more conversation now in modern day about. So the first skill is telepathy, which is the ability to mentally receive and transmit information. There may be times where you have experienced telepathy in your life. An example of telepathy occurring in your life is thinking about someone and they call. Okay? Another example of telepathy is wanting something to happen in a moment and visualizing that thing happening, and a person reacts in a way that encourages that thing to happen. So telepathy is the ability to use the mind or other psychic senses to, 1, receive and retrieve information, 2, to share information, but also to manipulate space, time, and people oftentimes. So telepathy is one of those gifts that is a little bit, can be difficult to cultivate, but the best way to begin cultivating telepathy is through self-awareness and being mindful of these types of phenomena or occurrences that might be happening that seem to be outside of the norm. The second skill of that is considered ESP is psychosymmetry. Psychosymmetry is when you're able to touch objects or tangible items that belong to someone else and be able to provide information about the person who once owned that item, that product, or that thing, right? So psychosymmetry is the ability to receive a pair of glasses, receive a pair of keys, and be able to tell a story about the previous owners. Precognition is the ability to see in the future. It is having visions or being able to know before things happen in the future or in the short present. So things that may just happen in a few minutes from now, you can receive precognition. Anything that deals with the future, even if it's a second away, is considered precognition. Retrocognition is the ability to see the past. It is the ability to tap into past history, past information, past data that you could not possibly know beyond research, okay? So when you're able to identify things that may have taken place in the past and you receive this information through divine download, that is called retrocognition. There's also remote viewing, which is the ability to be in one place and see what is going on in another place. And then you have your clairs, okay? Clair tangency, which is the received message by touch, is also the same as psychosymmetry. Clairaudience is the ability to hear things. So if you hear ringing, or you hear bells, or you hear voices, or you hear events or things that then create a vision in your mind's eye, this is the practice of using clairaudience. Clair empathy, as I discussed before, is the ability to sense emotion. For the most part, we consider that having empathic gifts, and we are definitely seeing a huge increase in individuals who identify as empathic or emotionally sensitive. Clair empaths tend to somewhat be a sponge, and that's why it's really important to have spiritual routines and practices that cleanse energy that you may have picked up from external influences beyond your own thoughts and actions. Clairsentient is the ability to feel. As I said and mentioned before, we all have the ability to tap into our gut feelings. So the ESP skills that I recommend each person begin with today is to start to begin with building your clairsentience, which is the ability to sense feeling, the ability to acknowledge and recognize within your gut what type of energy you're stepping into. Is the energy good? Is the energy bad? Really learning to trust your intuition, your personal psychic sense. All of this falls under clairsentience. And when we begin to talk about leveraging and refining your skill sets, I'll give you a couple of techniques that you can use to build clairsentience, most importantly, as well as some of these other ESP gifts. The next gift is 3 other clairs that I want to share with you today, and that is clairalience, which is sense of smell. So you may smell something that doesn't quite match the environment. No one's smoking, but you smell cigars. No one has come in with any type of vanilla fragrance perfume, but you smell vanilla fragrances. Oftentimes, this is sensing or picking up spiritual energy that may be left behind, or it can be spiritual energy that was just in the place that you are at this moment. Clairgustance is the sense of taste. So being able to taste the vision, in a lot of ways. Sometimes you may taste food, but also sometimes you may taste things that would otherwise be smelled. Sometimes you may taste things that are related to colors or numbers. So it is a skill set that definitely requires some level of intuition, some level of self-trust. And then the final Clair is clairvoyance, which is clear seeing. And there is another Clair called claircognizance, which is clear knowing. So this ability to just know things about people that you otherwise wouldn't know. So if you know me, then you know claircognizance is one of my gifts. Clair sentient, clair empathic. I also have retrocognition, and I guess you would say a clear audience, because I am able to hear messages from the other side and things of that sort. I occasionally have clairalience, which is the smell, but that is not one of my most strongest ones. So that's just an idea of some of the gifts that I have, and a lot of those gifts have become stronger through the work that I'm doing and my own spiritual journey that I do to make sure that spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, I am well. So that's just a huge overview of some of the examples of ESP. As I said before, there's plenty other ESP gifts, but these are ESP gifts that I feel that through trial and error, experience and time, you can actually have some sense of trust and belief in its abilities. As you may or may not know, all of these skills fall under what is considered pseudoscience or so-called science, because scientifically they haven't quite been able to prove these particular skill sets. However, through quantum physics and expansion and growth in science and evolution in science, we are going to eventually see science catch up with the spiritualists, with the the philosophers, with the thought leaders on these types of energies and topics. But for now, we're going to just trust that with practice and proof, that these gifts work. And that's how I prove to myself that many of these gifts work, and many of these gifts can bring you closer to your success, as well as align you with your dreams and goals. So how do we leverage ESP responsibly? So once you know that you have one of these gifts, or once you believe that you have one of these gifts, what is your responsibility if you're going to use this gift? What is your responsibility if you're going to cultivate this gift? The things that I'm saying are your responsibility are things that through the last 8 years of me doing this work, I have felt are most important, especially when we're trying to make sure that we do not interfere negatively with the laws of karma. So, one, when you're leveraging these gifts, you want to ask yourself why. What is my intention? What is the reason for me using this gift? How am I going to utilize it? And what is my expected outcome? So those are the first questions you want to ask yourself. If your expected outcome is negative, if your expected outcome is very juvenile, very base, very low level in its vibration, you may want to reconsider using these gifts in order to reach that end. The reason I say this is because the laws of karma and the laws of cause and effect are always at play in our life, whether we recognize it or not. The more that you misuse your gifts, whether it is your extrasensory perception gifts or the skills, talents, and abilities that God has given you in your life, the more that you misuse these gifts is the more that you rake up energy that does not serve your highest purpose. So negative karma, bad luck, stuck and stagnant energy. So you want to make sure that when you are utilizing these gifts, you are utilizing these gifts to prosper yourself in a very high vibrational way in order to stay on the right side of the laws of karma. You also want to ask yourself, what is my ethics? Like, what are the rules that I'm going to live by when I decide to tap into my greatest self? What kind of behaviors, what kind of characteristics, what kind of qualities, what kind of traits am I going to make sure I present in the world as I use these gifts of intention to get me in the rooms I want to be in, as I use these gifts of intention to determine the job or my purpose, as I use these gifts of intuition, how am I going to be the best version of myself, and how am I going to align with my most highest self, right? What are the ethics or the qualities that are going to get me there? I feel like before you begin to leverage extrasensory perception skills, it's really important to ask yourself these questions. And if your intentions come from a very negative based place, reconsider using these gifts. What else I have for you? So last part that I have for you, and then I'm going to open up for your questions. Well, two more parts, and then I'll open up for questions, and they'll be really quick, is I want to share with you some of the techniques and practices that will strengthen each and every one of these skills. And at that point, you'll be able to call them superpowers. Okay? So again, if you heard a certain gift or skill and you feel like that resonates with you, try and learn more about those gifts and try to cultivate them. I promise you they will get you closer to your dreams. And the reason why is when you're able to tap into this divine information, when you're able to tap in something greater and higher than you, your belief in your ability and capability skyrockets. You begin to truly understand what the intention was that was created in humans, right? The intention of humans was not for us to be base animals. It was for us to utilize every and all skill and resources to be the best version of ourselves, and also to take care of those things that cannot take care of themselves, like the planet as well as animals. And as you can see, we're not doing that great of a job. And the main reason I believe that we're not doing such a great job is because most of us are not tapped into our natural sensitivities. If we were, we would be more humane individuals. And so one of the gifts, in my opinion, that comes from cultivating this is humility, grace for yourself, confidence, self-awareness, trust, having a stronger faith and spiritual walk. There's so much beauty that comes out of nurturing these gifts. I really want to challenge you to begin to think outside of the box of the taboos that have been set on such things as intuition, because there is so much that is evading your awareness because you aren't cultivating these skills that God has likely given you as well. So, 1, meditate, and this is in no particular order, okay? So the first technique is meditation. Meditation will allow you to cultivate each and every single one of these skills. If you already have these gifts, it will allow you to tap in deeper and deeper with those gifts, and you will begin to see richer and richer visions, or feel richer and richer conversation occur within your inner mind and inner heart space. So the more that you do meditative work is the more that you connect with your inner self, your higher self, and the oneness or the connection beyond the self, you know? 2 is visualization, creating vision boards, or doing a visual meditation. So combining 1 and 2 together. Those the act of visualization will really begin to help you specifically with remote viewing. If this is a skill that you have and you want to continue to cultivate, it can help you with the cultivation of precognition as well as retrocognition. It can help you with the cultivation of clairvoyance as well as claircognizance, and it can help you with the cultivation of strengthening your intuition. Okay, so visualization is a practice that actually specifically can be really, really good for specific extrasensory perception tools. Visualization is good overall, but for those specific gifts, it can help give more edge and actually more practice and refinement to the muscle of that gift. 3 is the elements. So fire, water, sun gazing. And then there's an element of air where, saging, smudging practice and things of that sort. That isn't so much where I feel the refining of this gift comes from. I think that is to refine your space and your atmosphere so that you're experiencing these types of gifts within sacred space and protected space. But fire, water, and sun gazing will really help to cultivate most of the clear gifts that exist. So again, clear empathy, clear sentience, clear gustance, clear tangency, clear cognizance, clairvoyance, and clairaudience all can be refined through fire, water, or sun gazing. Okay. 4 is self-care and self-trust practices. So anything that you can do that encourages spiritual self-care, emotional self-care, dealing with any types of childhood trauma or childhood beliefs that are limiting you from being your best version of yourself, those types of practices will help to make you trust your intuition a lot more. And self-trust practices will help you to align in a way that you're able to listen to this divine inner guidance with a lot more faith. You know, if you are an individual who's Christian and has read the Bible, you would know that many of the prophets, many of the major players had to trust their intuition. They had to have faith. They had to trust what it was that they were seeing, feeling, and experiencing. I don't believe there was a burning bush talking, but there was a burning bush talking, if that makes sense. So all of these individuals had to deal with trusting that there was something greater than them in order for them to become these characters in these stories. And when we talk about that, let's talk about celebrity. So modern individuals where it's not necessarily related with religion, but you can tell that they're practicing the laws of attraction and the laws of using visualization and affirmation and prayer to get to where they want to be. And I promise you, they're activating and tapping into their ESP gifts, whether they know it or not. Will Smith, Jim Carrey, Steve Harvey, Oprah, Rihanna, Jennifer Lopez, Cardi B. I'm sure there's so many, Beyonce. I'm sure there's Jay-Z. I'm sure there's so many other celebrities that I can think of, and probably every single successful celebrity has nurtured these gifts in some way, and they are using their intuition and these ESP gifts in order to get themselves in the right room, around the right people, and also to establish when is the right time to strike. Okay, so that's another great gift about following your intuition. It helps you know when is the right time to take action. It helps you to know when is the right time to sit back, if only you take time to be silent and listen. Number 5 is boundaries. Okay, you need boundaries with everything. We need boundaries, especially when you're trying to leverage intuitive gifts for success. You need to know when you're crossing the line, and you need to know when others are crossing your line. Okay. 6 is be present. So the act and the practice on a regular and consistent basis of self-awareness. So if you're going to practice being self-aware, it is mandatory that you do regular emotional inventory. If you're not doing regular emotional inventory, you're not regularly checking on your mental, emotional, and spiritual state, there is no way that you can consider yourself self-aware. So if you want to strengthen your self-awareness, which will directly impact your intuition, I really, really, really encourage you to at least weekly take inventory on how you feel, take inventory on how or on where you're at in your life, take inventory on the relationships that you're entertaining and the energy that you're spending. 7, tarot. And tarot for me, I mean, I'm biased. I've been using tarot since I was 12. I received it from a family member of mine when my mom passed, because they didn't quite know how to deal with what I was dealing with, and they definitely didn't know how to deal with the fact that I was telling them I was seeing and experiencing ghost activity or spiritual visitations. And so tarot was one of those things that helped me to get a clearer idea of what was trying to be communicated to me from the other side, but also helped me to be able to make decisions. I was able to see, you know, where I was at, where I was going ahead, and what was required of me if I wanted to change my trajectory or if I wanted a different outcome. And I can say with great certainty, after 20 years, I've seen nothing but amazing results, and it's actually at a space now where I actually have to regularly get my own readings from someone else, so because I've become so comfortable that I might even be biased at this point. So now I reach out to someone else, but it has become a very helpful tool. So I do feel like using tarot to build your intuition, or using tarot as a place to test proof of energy techniques, is a really good idea if you learn from the right person and if you have the proper and appropriate mindset. 8 is divination techniques, and the reason why I separated that from tarot is because I don't quite use tarot with the mindset of divination. I may divine something, but that's never really my intention. I use tarot as a tool of self-transformation and self-development in the present so that it can greater impact your future. Whereas divination techniques usually talk specifically about what is to come. Oftentimes they may talk about what's in the present as well, and a little bit about the past, but a lot of it can be things that you can't necessarily prove to be true in that moment. Whereas tarot, often I can prove these things to be true in this moment. Divination techniques, and when I say divination techniques, I'm talking about getting a reading from someone who practices Ifa, or getting a reading from someone who practices Vodun, or getting a reading from someone who practices Sanse, or any other tradition where they're using some type of tool to determine what the future looks like. And there's many different divination techniques.